Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. And this beautiful Thursday morning, we have lined up for you very interesting topics. And we are going into a number of them. It's a convergence of issues around the budget and finance for us this morning. As the 2023 elections in Nigeria approaches, one issue that is top of the mind for voters is the country's massive debt and debt service. Both local and foreign. However, presidential candidates seem not to be clear about their plans for dealing with the country's current debt and future borrowings. The Debt Management Office reported that Nigeria's public debt was 44.6 trillion at the end of June 2022, including 17.5 trillion in external debt and 26.92 trillion in domestic debt. However, the government indebtedness to the Central Bank of Nigeria alone is over 22 trillion. With the possibility of an economic recession and a slow growth this year, it has become imperative for the country to proactively address its debt burden and to avoid defaulting on payment of interest or principal. This is going to be a challenge for the successive administrations after President Muhammadu Buhari, which makes it more important for candidates contesting the 2023 general elections to be clear about their plans to address the country's debt burden. Joining us now to discuss these issues, we have Mr. Jamil Mohammed Dairu. He's an economist and an analyst and an author. It's a pleasure to have you join us in the studio, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you. Happy New Year, by the way, sir.
Same to you.
Thank you. We also have with us, as Ibrahim said to one of our earlier visitors, a man who is gradually attaining the status of a co-anchor, Jide Ojo. He's a political analyst and a public affairs commentator. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning, Sonny. Good morning, Brian. And Happy New Year to our viewers as well.
Thank you. Mr. Jide Ojo seems to be reversing. He's got a button that is helping him reverse his age. We are the ones catching up. Thanks
for the compliment.
He seems to have put a stop on the age. And we will also have joining us virtually from Lagos, Vincent Nwama, a consulting business editor for the Daily Trust titles. Good morning. Gentlemen, if you ask, if you like, quite a number of things happening in our polity ahead of the 2023 elections. We have had people like you repeatedly call for clarity in the messaging of the politicians rather than just jumping on stage and dancing their way off to political positions. We have subsisting issues. We were hoping that these politicians' messaging would help provide clarity as to how this country will move. And one of them, as we have heard from that preliminary readings, it would be our debt burden. 46 trillion, we have a ways and means that has not been captured. As a matter of fact, we have another 1 trillion or more of outstanding payments to contractors, if you recall. You know that they've been carrying, that is also not captured in this debt that they've been talking about also securitizing. So the question is, this government clearly has no time to begin to deal with the debt burden. They will attain sunlight in another 5 months. From what you have observed with the candidates, does it seem like we have clarity with regards to what we are going to do with the bulk that we have amassed and how we can change the narrative going forward? I will start with you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. From all indications, what we are seeing, I have not seen any of the candidates with a clear-cut succession plan about how to deal with our debt burden. One of them, Atiku Abubakar, actually spoke about debt cancellation. I think that is, to say the least, reckless at this point in time. We have had that before, and when it happened, I didn't see it as an economic activity. Our last debt cancellation. Most times it is political, it is diplomatic, and I think that is the path Alhaji Atiku Abubakar wants to tour, and I think that is not good for us. For the other candidates, none of them have said anything about how to deal with our debt burden. they have certain windows. One window is to follow the current trend. The current trend, already we have about 6 trillion to service our debts. And you can compare that to our own capital expenditure, which is almost the same.
Amount, yeah.
So what it means now is that with every year, we are being retarded by another year. If we would invest this 6 trillion debt servicing into another 6 trillion capital investment, I think you will see it's another 12 trillion or 2 years ahead of time. So it means every year we are being retarded by another year. That is one trend. Possibly they would want to follow. The other trend is they will say, okay, let us restructure. Restructuring the debt, it has its own downside too. And I think it is like saying, instead of burdening our Nigeria's first generation, if we restructure, we are burdening the second generation. We are expanding the time of the debt, which is also not healthy. But perhaps you have enjoyed your own now, and you are telling us that future Nigerians should not enjoy. The Nigerians in the next 5 years, 7 years, should bear the burden of the debt now. If you restructure, you are now bringing in the Nigerians of 15, 20 years to come. That is another window. And I think that window too, I don't seem to like that window. So debt restructuring shouldn't be on the table. Then the current trend too, I think we need to panel beat the current trend. And we cannot go for debt cancellation. I think diplomatic, it is something that we are not even sure that it would happen. So the best thing is, why not restructure the structure of the Nigerian economy? Now what we export, we now pride that we have changed the course of the economy, not dependent on oil. They say non-oil exports have taken over. But this is the same thing. What we have actually demonized in the oil is what is in the solid minerals. What you do is you are using the crude economy. You are not adding value to what you are exporting. It's the same thing in oil. That's why we don't like the oil.
I would like you to hold your thought on that. We would be exploring that in the course of the conversation. Mr. Jide, you've listened to him enumerate it, and he keeps saying this is not on the table. Debt restructuring is not on the table because it will burden future generation. Cancellation is not on the table because it's also reckless and it is not a given. Where do we find ourselves in the mix of all of these options that are not available?
No option is unavailable. Every option is available. Depends on, you cannot pursue a one-track option and think you get out of the debt peonage. What I think is lacking is the missing link in our underdevelopment that's made us to remain perpetually dependent on Western world and Asian targets is lack of science, technology, and innovation. And when you are consumptive economy, you cannot but experience what we are doing now. My colleague here was talking about no value addition. How do you attain value addition on your products, whether it's agricultural products, crude oil, or solid mineral? It's by innovating. Innovation, science, technology, industrialization. That's the way out. Today, everybody runs to China. The last time I was here, over the Christmas period, we are talking of Chinese don't celebrate Christmas, but they provide Christmas lighting for the rest of the world. If you want to, all these Dubai, all these lightings that was used during the World Cup in Doha, in Qatar, who supplied them? The stadium, who built it? Was it the Arabs? They were built by the Chinese. Chinese built our African Union building for ECOWAS headquarters for. Why is it that a country of 206 million estimated is going to China to borrow, to fund its own budget? You hear we are going to Chinese Exim Bank. If they have not innovated, have industrialized their own economy, there is no way China would have fed its over 1.4 billion population and still have resources to bring to Africa, to take to other parts of the world. So the point is, we are lazy about innovation. From time immemorial, we've been saying, you cannot be exporting crude products and think you will get premium pricing on your products. We export crude oil for over 50 years. Where has it led us? We've been exporting solid minerals. Where has it led us? We've been exporting raw agricultural products. The Chinese will come to Kaduna here, buy ginger, process it into ginger tea, and sell it back to us. And we'll buy it at huge cost. So why can't we have that kind of innovation? Every time, I was in US in 2010, they were talking of Chinatown in Washington, D.C. China has town in almost every country of this world. What do? They are the one that killed the textile industry because of innovation. They are able to, they will come and buy cotton from the northern Nigeria, export it, and process it into clothing. So when we don't do that, we have not diversified our economy. Everybody, today, we are still exporting crude oil and importing, and let me tell you the danger in that. For over 50 years, close to 60 years, we've been doing that. Now, you export crude oil. From 1 barrel of crude oil, you can find over 30 byproducts. Lubricants, it's from the same crude you get DPK, you get PMS, you get kerosene, you get from the same 1 barrel of crude, over 30 products. But where are we in that? No value chain. No, we have not added any value chain. Then they will come to Zamfara, explore the gold, take it to Dubai. Then they will make it into jewelries, into trinkets, and all of that. Why can't we think about, we have Ministry of Science and Technology that has been there for God knows how many years. We have patented, what's it called? From the universities of technologies, from industrial researches. IIT have been there in Ibadan for over 40 years, doing researches in tropical agriculture. But we have not seen that value addition in all that we produce. And now, we are looking at the shortcut. The shortcut is go borrowing. This 2023 budget now, we are borrowing about 12 trillion to services. That's why Obieze Kwesili said it's the hopeless budget. It's dead on arrival. It's unimplementable. 22.7 trillion ways and means. You have not captured it. And these people are going for campaigns. They have done their bit now. They have gone. And then we are running two budgets simultaneously. The Supplementary Appropriation Bill, the Supplementary Appropriation Act of 820 billion estimated to 819.5 billion, and then the 21.8 trillion. And you are saying, okay, Minister of Finance, make sure there is cash release. What is the component? You are doing service while you are in that servicing 6 trillion. Then your capital is just about 6 trillion as well. So the amount you are spending to service debt is equal to the amount you are spending on your capital project. So where do you go in all of this without innovation, without science, without technology, without industrialization? And yet, this administration after 8 years is exiting with less than 6,000 megawatts of electricity. So how do you even industrialize when you don't have...
So that leads to the question now. Okay, we need to industrialize, we need to diversify, we need to produce more, not consume, right? All this is going to require some capital injection. Lots of things need to go into research and development, and of course, and all that. With the current trend now that he just talked about, that we are borrowing to finance our budget. We are actually borrowing money to service money that we have borrowed. How can we be able to do that? Where will we be able to find the resources to go into this, to do what we're supposed to do, to get where we need to get?
I think the major thing is not about resources alone. Resources is part of it, but I think we have a poor framework of our economy, not even our budgetary processes, but the economy itself is platformed poorly. Now you have our crude products being exported. If you add value, step one, you have employed more. Value, step two, you have employed more. Okay, now the crude economy, normally in an economy, before you get the products, you have about 4 different sectors or 4 different steps. You have the crude sector. That's where we get the crude oil, solid minerals, raw, and then we export. That's the crude part of the economy. Then you have the processing part of the economy. That's where you have things like agricultural finished goods, consumption goods, food items. Those ones fall into the processing aspect of the economy. Then now you have what he mentioned as industrialization, manufacturing. I see our economic managers sometimes lump crude oil refining or production as manufacturing. That is very, very wrong. Manufacturing involves things, processes like producing cars, electronics, watches, and so on and so forth. That's where you go to manufacturing. This is where you have high-level employments. That's the third part. Then the fourth one is the services sector. Okay, now, in all these 4, you now have to prioritize which one comes first. All the 4 belongs to one single economy. Now, which one comes first, which one comes second, which one comes third? That's where the problem is. For our own type of economy, what you now design is bring up the manufacturing sector on top. That should be the priority, manufacturing. Then now you bring in the processing sector to follow it. Then now you bring in the crude sector. Services is found almost everywhere. So unless you look at your priority, this one would give you 30%, possibly you say manufacturing should give you 30%, crude should give you 20%, and so on. So the whole 4 should fall within 100%. Unless you turn up this thing, you know the design, you have now sectored your economy, and you have brought in, a while ago, we used to have, not a while ago, a long time ago, we used to have PAN in Kaduna. We used to have, I think, Volkswagen in Lagos. These things have vanished. Leyland in Ibadan. These things have vanished. So they do not belong to our economy today. How do you now bring back these things? I have looked at major exports, economic product exports, global exports. Nigeria is not found anywhere. We have talked about diversifying, possibly in agriculture. In the first 100 products, most exported products globally, agriculture has only 3 products. first 100 products, agriculture has only 3 products. And the first product that has appeared in the last 2-3 years appeared around number 42, 43, 44. And it's not even a staple food. It's a supplement food. Soya beans appearing at number 40. And you are saying you are diversifying to agriculture. So you are not in tune with
reality.
With reality, with the globe. Your economy is just, I don't know how to put it. You have caged your economy. You have caged your economy instead of globalizing the economy. So you have to look at things like technology. The second most exported product in this world today is the microchip. In the simple microchip, today technology has made it that from basic components of transistors, capacitors, resistors, you have now made them into ICs as chips. But today, they have even advanced, not simple ICs that will process, but you have ICs that maintain systems. You have a single IC that controls a robot. So I think this we need massive rethinking.
All right, well, we need massive rethinking indeed. Well, we're still going to keep on analyzing these issues. And right now we're going to take a report concerning the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning on Wednesday presented the 2023 budget to the public. Now, the presentation followed the signing of the appropriation bill into law by President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday. Now, let's take a look at this report from Chamun DAYBREAK.
The public presentation, which took place at the ministry's headquarters in Abuja, is aimed at giving the public an insight into the nation's proposed spendings for the year and also allow for comments and questions from the public. According to the finance minister, the 2023 budget was prepared on the backdrop of global and domestic challenges. During the presentation, the minister revealed that the federal government has spent about 5.24 trillion naira on debt servicing alone between January and November 2022.
The deficit to GDP ratio is 5.03%, which is higher than the 3% as stipulated by the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And we're working with the National Assembly to determine what we need to do, whether or not we need to amend that provision of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, because several countries have actually done that. In the times in which we live in today, that 3% is no longer realistic. Public debt to GDP, we have 22.8%. This is as at 2022, but this has since moved on to 35.33%. Once we, this is as of September, once we adjust to the ways and means that has already been approved to be securitized. So once we bring it in, this will take us to 35.33%.
Nigeria's tussle with subsidy removal was once again brought to the forefront. The Buhari-led administration had planned to remove fuel subsidy by June of 2022, but the plan was shelved following outcry by Nigerians.
The projected fiscal outcomes in the 2023 budget is based on petroleum subsidy reform ratio, and that is to say in the 2023 framework, we had assumed, and the National Assembly had approved, that the petroleum subsidy would remain up to the middle of 2023, based on the 18 months extension announced early in 2022. In this regard, only 3.36 trillion has been provided for PMS subsidy in the 2023 budget.
Ahmed, who spoke on the implementation of the 2022 budget, which the National Assembly has extended to March 31st, 2023, stated that the retained income of the federal government was recorded at 6.5 trillion naira, or 87% of the prorated objective of 7.48 trillion naira. Chamun DAYBREAK, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Welcome back. The minister yesterday giving a breakdown of the approved budget, she went on to explain that the total revenue available to fund the budget is 10.49, as we have rightly mentioned here, 10.49 trillion. And according to her, the budget has a recurrent expenditure of 8.3 trillion and a capital expenditure of 6.4 trillion. The sum of 6.3 is earmarked for debt servicing, and the minister explained that 3.3 trillion naira is for fuel subsidy till the end of 2023. A number of the things we were saying here, she had captured in that breakdown. But coming to you, Mr. Jide, I'm talking about how to come out of this quagmire. Some of the options we have discussed are not things that we can do on the short to medium term. They are probably plans that we'll begin to see, will begin to come to fruition maybe in another 5 years. But what do we do with our current budgeting system? You heard him say the platforming is wrong. I mean, we have got it all wrong. One other analyst who was here with us a couple of days ago talked about the sheer wastage, even in the budget. We saw how much was introduced by the National Assembly. You know, and all of that. We saw what appears to be like duplication of budget. I mean, it's these same budgeting cycles that we have seen a ministry prioritizing building a worship place rather than investing in the actual things that would make it achieve results. Is there no way we can deal with this waste as much as possible to cut down on the monies that we push into these sectors and find a way of containing this budget around? And when I talk about waste now, it will also include tightening nose on the areas where we are not doing much. She talked about losing 6 trillion to tax waivers, fraudulent tax waivers. People come in, get a 10-year tax waiver, and at the end, the company disappears, a new company is floated, it comes back. What can we do within the current structure, you know, to find the kind of fundings that we need to support the capital expenditure?
You see, if there's one great disappointment that people have with Buhari administration, is refusal to own up to the kind of change they promised Nigerians. We are taught that Buhari was going to change the dynamics of the economy. And I recall that he had a C agenda, security, economy, and anti-corruption. And I recall the 2016 budget he brought in a new envelope system. I've forgotten how they called it that time. That
zero budget.
Zero budgeting. God bless you, sir. Zero budgeting. But where is that zero budgeting today? They just used it for 1 year and abandoned it because there is no commitment to reforms. So everything has been incremental, and year in, year out, you see those financial experts telling us about the huge wastages in the system, even in the presidency's budget. You ask yourself, does the president need 6 or 7 aircraft in his presidential air fleet?
11, actually.
Oh, yeah. No, as at the time he took over, it was 11 or 12. He gave some to Air Force.
Just give it to
So, does he need that many? When the Pope, with over 1 billion population of worshippers, does not have one private jet. Even the Prime Minister of UK flies British Caledonian Airways. So we that are poor, and that's why I agree with him, we can't get debt cancellation with our consumption level. When you are buying car every year, you are buying a computer every year. The kind of duplication you find in our budgeting system is next to none in the whole wide world. So when you have this high level of consumption, high level of lack of productivity, during the COVID-19, workers from level 12 to 1 were asked to stay off work for over 1 year. So where is that productivity? Then oil theft. Under this administration, you have oil theft of industrial scale. 900,000 barrels being taken on daily basis out of Nigeria. To the extent that our security agencies were handicapped, we had to run to a non-state actor, gave him billions of naira to help us secure our pipelines. Is that how it is done in other climes? Look at how the quantum of money, the last year's budget only was premised on 1.8 million barrels per day. We never met that for 1 day. As of September 2021 and to September 2022, Ministry of Finance was telling, or is it Ministry of Finance or NMPs was telling us we only produce 900,000 barrels. Meanwhile, we have done amnesty program for Niger Delta militants since 2009. That amnesty program has not been cancelled, has not been suspended. Yet, you still have this magnitude of oil theft. You still have this magnitude of kidnapping in the Niger Delta region. Then you come to issue of government-owned enterprises. They will make money, they will not remit. They give back, and you have a treasury single account that nobody cares to implement. The FRS will collect money, remit whatever it likes to the coffers of it. CBI will collect money, remit whatever. Look at the controversy over stamp duty. Look at the controversy over NISA, the small and medium enterprises stimulation. Look at even the so-called anchor borrowers program of CBN in trillions that cannot be accounted for. Who gave those waivers of 6 trillion? Is it not the same administration that is using it for patronage? We decided not to remove subsidy that cost us close to 7 trillion last year because of politics. They want to win re-election. And so you suspended as part of an act of National Assembly for 18 months to cover for your inefficiency. So where do we go? Look at the fraud in IPs with the Accountant General making away with 109 billion and just giving back 30 billion according to EFCC. Over 70 billion is still within. They don't know how they are going. They are doing plea bargaining. So under the same Buhari administration, you have this level of haste, a level of look at the corruption at MPA that led to the removal of Bala Usman's daughter. Look at that. Everybody is just running their own government individually.
Right,
so this unless you attack all of this, you will continue to borrow. It's a vicious circle. You borrow and people will steal the money. They will not account for the money. We do not know the level of our budget implementation. Everything is shrouded in secrecy. You have extended the budget of 2022 to March 31. So you are running 2 parallel budgets at the same time. Is that not confusing?
All right. So he brought up a very salient issue. That's the issue of subsidy. This government came in with the main issue saying they are going to remove fuel subsidy. They made the declaration and they said they were actually going to do that. And then after a while, they extended it. They pushed it forward by 18 months. Now it is captured in this budget that is going to run until June, and a colossal amount of money has been allocated to that, over 3 trillion naira. So where do we go with this subsidy issue? Meanwhile, by the time that this is removed in June, a new government will be in place. Keeping in mind that
subsidy is actually, or our own subsidy is not an economic entity. It is a political entity. And globally even, wherever you have subsidy running through 2-3 different financial years, then you know it's no more subsidy. Subsidies are meant to solve certain economic problems for certain times.
And they expire.
Once we are out of those problems, then the subsidies would go. Now, in our own case, the subsidy has been there for donkey years. And we actually, every time we come, we treat the subsidy as being economic. There's nothing economic about the subsidy. Before the poor man on the street gains 10 naira of our own subsidy, the cabal up there are getting 500 naira.
That's it.
That's what is happening. So the government actually, subsidy is not subsidizing the poor. It is, in fact, don't even call it subsidy. It's a freebie. You are only giving people, there's a political cabal there fighting. They must fight to keep the subsidy. And they have so much brainwashed the general public. If you try to tell the general public that government will remove subsidy, they say, okay, we don't trust the government. If they remove the subsidy, what would they do with it? In fact, there's something we enjoy there. You enjoy 10 naira, somebody is enjoying 500 naira up there, and you are still happy with it. So they have so much brainwashed. So we don't actually need this subsidy. 3 trillion naira, half of our capital expenditure budget. If you would put that into our capital expenditure budget, the Sani Abacha days did something that should have been in place by now. If we want to remove the subsidy gradually, I think we could go the way of the former PTF. If that is, if Nigerians don't even trust the government, and Nigerians don't have to trust the government because of the wastages we have mentioned here. There are so many of these things going on. We mentioned about the waivers, the white-collar stealing of Nigeria's resources and so on. I will tell you now, one of the problems we are facing in our exchange rate, there is something a little bit hidden. We can go back 20 years and look at how Nigeria has not been able to repatriate over $1 trillion of our exports. We export, by law, there's a Pre-Shipment Inspection of Exports Act. By law, when you export, you repatriate the proceeds. Go and check. There is no export entity obeying that law, repatriating our. The best they will do is they export, then for the sake of the law, they repatriate, and then the next day, today the account is credited.
Yes.
The next day, it is debited wholly. So if you don't have those dollars, why are you talking about dollar scarcity? We export, the money is not coming back. And that one, nobody has even spoken about that. If you attack that now, they will say you are attacking the central bank. The central bank seems to have become an epitome of Nigeria's problem today. So I think subsidy is actually not economic, it's political. If we want to check the issue of subsidy, let us look at the politicians and tell them, look, this is your own thing. We don't want it.
Interesting conversations there with Mr. Jide and Mr. Jamil. I was just looking through a chart a couple of days ago that was doing comparative analysis. In a certain year, in this second administration of the president, we spent 4 trillion naira on subsidy, and then it jacked up to 6.5. We are talking about another 3 trillion in 2023. I mean, if you put that together, it cost Dangote somewhere around 16, 17 billion naira to put up an entire industrial complex. You would begin to imagine what we would have done as an opportunity cost if we had deployed that money into building another industrial complex, the size of what Dangote has. But that is the much time will allow us discuss this morning. The problems are enormous, but the time is very limited. As the Bible will say, the harvest is much, but the laborers are few. It's been a delight having Mr. Jide and Mr. Jamil in the studio provide us what appears to be very deep insight into understanding our budgeting system, the waste and the opportunities. Thank you very much for making it to the studio.
Thank you.
This conversation will surely continue in another form next time. And we hope that when we reach out, you will find the time to provide our viewers with your in-depth analysis.
Thank you.
And I want to appreciate the management and staff of Daily Trust for keeping the flag flying. It's not easy to bring issues of this nature to fore. In a political environment that you can easily be targeted and, you know, could be misconstrued for working for the opposition or working for, you know, that kind of stuff. But I appreciate the media convergence, and I wish you all the best in the new year.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a fitting compliment from you, and we take it to heart, and that would mean more effort on our part. And for viewers at home, we thank you for allowing us come into your living room free of charge. We hope we have made it worthwhile. And we want to invite you to keep a date with us tomorrow as we do this again. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
All right, thank you for staying with us on Daybreak this morning. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.